Hello there, welcome back. This is the second of a two-part video covering the system defaults for ProLib. To get into your video, click on Administration, click on System Defaults. In the first video we covered page 1, so click on Save. In the first video we covered page 2, so click on Save, and we get to the third page of system defaults that need to be set up. The gold star label is a field on every book in your library that you can put into it whatever you want. This is the label for the book, and it would appear on the book capture screen, and it would have the title of whatever you have called in the system. So in this school they call it Top of the Pops. You might want to call it Best Read. So you put in Best Read, and now when you go into a book it would show a field for the Best Read, and into that field you could either put an asterisk or a tick or a yes or a no or whatever you want. You can then actually do searches through the system. When a pupil brings back a book, you can say to me, what Best Read books haven't I read yet? And immediately you can give them a list of all those books so you can choose another one. The house and residence and the tutorial groups, these fields are labels that are put onto the member screen if you use them. Some schools put the house that the pupil belongs to, the sports house, and they do prize giving at the end of the year based on the best reading in a particular house, etc., etc. Same in tutorial groups. Then difficulty used. You can choose what difficulties you want. You might have that you're just going to have 3 difficulty levels for your books, and each difficulty level would be associated with, say, a numeric value. Some schools then categorize their books by difficulty level, and at the end of the year they take the sum total of all the books that a pupil has read, multiplied by the difficulty level value for each book, giving the best reader in the school or the best reader in a grade or class. From a personal point of view, we at ProGen don't advocate this, because we believe that it's not the librarian's job to try and get the pupils to outdo each other. And also, if you're going to have prizes associated with how many books a pupil has taken out in the year, then they are going to fiddle the system and simply take out books and bring them back without even reading them. And you, the librarian, then be faced with an onerous task of having to check that each pupil that has taken out a book has actually read it by questioning them. And then you'd need to know, you would have to have read the book yourself. So we don't advocate it, but it's there if you need to use it. Within ProLib, you can associate a photograph for a learner with their library number. And whenever you issue or return books or do reserves or whatever, and then their photo would pop up for their particular library number. It's useful in that it allows you to see that the library number that you just entered actually matches the person that's standing in front of you wanting to take out books, etc. So if you want to use photographs, then you have 3 options. Bitmap photographs, you put them in the background, JPEG format in the background, or you say photos are not used. And if photos are not used, then throughout the system, whenever ProLib wants to display a photograph, they would say, oh, photos are not used, and therefore it doesn't go through the routine of finding the photograph for that person and displaying it on the screen. The name format is how you would like each member in your library to be reported on reports. So it's the format for their name, and you have many options. You can start off with I have their first name followed by their surname, first name, comma, surname, etc., etc., etc. And you can see there are many options for you to choose from. And what we find is that on most schools, they use option 4, the child's surname followed by their first name. Default sex. If you have a single-sex school, then if you go to here and say, no, we want males, then every single pupil, every single member in your library will be made into a male. If you have a dual-sex school, then what you do is you choose the sex where you have most females, for example, in your school, and now when a new member is put into the system, they'll be automatically made into a female, and you can say, no, this person's actually a male, and change it at that point in time. Scale photos in use is becoming a field that is not normally necessary anymore, but it's there for those schools where when they use photos, the photos are not quite displayed correctly within ProLib. Then they can come back to here and tick on scale photographs, and ProLib will try and scale that photograph the best way it can to fit into the area on the display screen. If this doesn't work, then we suggest you get hold of ProLib ProGen, and we will try and advise you what to do with your photographs. Some schools still have old dot matrix type printers, and they can't print graphics. But if you have beautiful new printers available to you, then they can print the graphics characters, then please tick this field, and then the reports are printed with beautiful outlining, as if in fact the whole thing was printed in Word or something like that. Data restrictions is an interesting one. Within ProLib, you can do searches on just about anything. What books in the library for a particular librarian, or for a particular author, or not librarian, it's an author, or what books are in the library for a particular illustrator, or a particular subject. But what it also does, it allows the member to see for a particular book who has it out, so that they can get in on the list and try and get that book as soon as it comes back from that particular person. Now, this has posed problems for some librarians in schools where they have a dual-sex school, in that maybe some of the books in the library are about sex education, and the librarian does not want the boys to be able to see what the girls are reading, and vice versa. So it's up to you, the librarian. If you want to put that restriction in place, then you would tick this particular field here, otherwise you would leave it empty. And if you put the tick in place, then when a male pupil tries to see what books are out to females, he won't be able to get there. It just says access denied, and vice versa. When you get down to cataloging your books, then within ProLib you can use 4 levels of cataloging. Normally, in libraries they would use only subject cataloging, where against each book they can put any number of subjects against that particular book. And now I could go into the system and I could say, please show me all the books on volcanoes, and the system would be able to give me a list immediately on every book in the system that has been catalogued as having a subject of volcanoes against it. You can put any number of subjects against any book. Short subject descriptions is used in those libraries where they don't normally have a full-time librarian or a trained librarian. And so the trained librarian would know how to use the Dewey Decimal System, whereas if they don't have such a person, they might want to use simply a short description about the book. So you could say, for example, the short description is a description of Nelson Mandela's time on Robben Island. Now, ProLib would be able to do a search through all the titles in the system, looking for any word that matches a word that you put into a short description. So we had Robben Island in our example, if we put into the system shows all books with Robin Island in it, it would read through every single book in the library, find those books that have Robin Island as part of their title, and then display that book for you. So it is an easy way of cataloging your library if you don't know the Dewey system. Book abstracts are only used in our tertiary schools, tertiary institutions. The book abstract is a preview of what is the content of that particular book. And one wouldn't want to usually do this within school libraries. Keywords. Keywords are any words or phrases that you can attach to a book, and you can attach as many as you want to every book. They are things like, for example, ghost stories, love stories, cowboy stories, you name it. But you wouldn't put the keyword into a subject. So it's a way of also cross-referencing. I could go into the system and say, please show me all the ghost stories in ProLib, and it would come back with a list of every book. And the searches are more or less instantaneous. Having decided what levels of cataloging that you want to use, then you decide what level of cataloging you want your non-librarians to be able to do. There might be certain areas, for example, the use of short subject descriptions, that you would let a non-librarian enter into books on your behalf. So the librarian would decide she's not going to allow a non-librarian, say a mother that's helping, to capture subject cataloging, but that the person can quite happily go and put in short subject descriptions, and she can put in keywords. Now within ProLib, if it's a non-librarian that is accessioning a book, she would be able to go and put in short descriptions, and she'd be able to put in keywords, but she would not be allowed to put in either the subject cataloging or book abstract information. Finally on the screen, we have the concept of Chromebooks. This is a special field used by those schools that have tablets or laptops that the pupils take out during study periods, and the school wants to keep them safe within the library when they're not in use. So the tablet or the Chromebook or the laptop is accessioned into the system as if it was, in inverted commas, a book, and the ProLib system then keeps control of who, which tablets have been issued to a pupil, who's brought them back, etc., as if they were a book. But all the reports within the ProLib system will then ignore reporting on Chromebooks unless you, the librarian, particularly ask for a Chromebook report. This is the end of this video. It has covered the system defaults.